Hi everyone, I'm Goradia. I'm a Somatic Experiencing practitioner on the non-dual path. Today, I want to talk about identification. So one of the reasons I started on the non-dual path, I had already been on a spiritual path before, but this is the one I had gone very deep with after exploring many options. And one of the reasons is because of this disidentification here that is involved. So what is identification? Identification is when I think that something means something about me or my life, or something is me. And so I identify with it. I think something defines me. So in trauma, this often happens where I think an emotion or an experience defines me, or I have beliefs that I identify with. And some of those beliefs may lock me into the trauma. I might believe that this trauma now defines me, that who I am is a result of this trauma. But the thing is, while we do need to feel through the emotions that arise when we believe this, we need to feel whatever we felt when we had the trauma. We need to own those emotions in order to release them. But if I stay in the belief that I can be defined by something that happened to me or that someone did to me, then I'm going to remain trapped in this trauma identification, this identification with my story and with my emotions. So this is not a place for everyone to start in their trauma healing journey. This is inevitably where I ended up in mine because I'd begun to identify with my traumas. So this was a welcome liberation for me to have a pathway where I could disidentify, not bypass, but disidentify from my trauma emotions and from the story. You've got to feel through the emotions. That is necessary, or they do get stuck in the body. But once you've felt them through, if you continue to believe them, see, if I continue to have the story and I continue to believe it, it continues to create emotions in my body. And then what happens is these emotions then contribute to my thinking. Either the flavor of the thought is influenced by the emotion I'm feeling in that moment, or the content itself is brought up because of that emotion, and it triggers specific thoughts. So what happens here is I get stuck in this loop of I think something, I believe it, I feel something, and then I think that it must be true because I feel so strongly about it. This emotional layer adds sort of color, sort of background to the thoughts, which give them life. It makes them feel much more true than just a random thought without an emotional experience. So being stuck in this loop then means that my trauma can influence the quality of my life forever. So shouldn't I be allowed to heal from my trauma? Yes, it still happened. No, I don't condone it. But do I want to be free of it and see that who I am actually transcends what anyone can do to me or what any experience can do to me, and that no one can define me? And that's where non-duality can really help, because it widens the perspective so that I'm no longer identified with my trauma. I feel an emotion and then I can see it. I can't be this emotion. Yes, it is my experience, but I'm the experiencer, aren't I? And this is actually an intermediate teaching for non-duality, but it's important to do this intermediate part. Otherwise, this can be bypassed and then you might have to come back to it. So I can see I cannot be this emotion because I am the one who's able to observe it. So I must be the observer, right? I can't be the object of my attention. And these emotions, they come and go. But here I am. I stay the same. Just because I'm feeling fear in this moment, does that define me as a fearful person? Or does this just mean I'm experiencing fear in this moment and I might experience joy in the next moment? It's very important we don't let our temporary emotional experiences define who we are. They can't. And so this disidentification, it gives us some space between our emotional experience and what we believe about our emotional experience. If I believe it is me, because it can feel like me, because it's here in my core, right? It feels like, oh, that's me. But it's still not me. It's my experience. It just feels close to home. So if I have an emotion that feels like it's me, and then on top of that, I have thoughts and beliefs about it that this must mean something about me and my life, these emotions, then I'm adding thoughts and beliefs onto the emotional experience. Those thoughts and beliefs will create another emotional experience. They also react to the emotion in ways of being averse to them, fearing them, attaching to them. And so it gets very complicated here. We want to take off all the layers that we're adding on to the primary emotional experience. And so I need to question if I'm projecting a meaning onto a sensation. I want to give an example that many of you can relate to. So say like I have butterflies in my stomach because I'm going to have an exam. And then I'm like, oh yeah, this must mean I'm anxious. And the next day I have butterflies in my stomach because I'm on a date. And then the mind interprets that to mean I'm in love. It's the exact same feeling, but the mind has projected different meaning onto this feeling based on perception, traumas, filters, context. So we have to look at this really clearly and skeptically when we have an automatic projection onto a sensation, because sensations do not have inherent meaning. For example, could you write a book using only sensations? No, right? Because sensations don't have intrinsic words attached to them. The mind is projecting meaning onto them. It's very important to see this. So the next time you have a feeling and you think that means that I'm not good enough, it means something's wrong with my life, catch it. Just notice for a second. Oh, where did I learn that from? Did I assume that because I was a child and things were hard in my life, I was treated unfairly, and then I thought that that just meant that I wasn't enough? A child makes these misinterpretations. The facts still happened. The trauma still happened. The behavior still happened. But the child misinterpreted it to mean that something was wrong with them. So this is the conditioning we want to unwind instead of blindly believing the contents of the mind in the presence of a given emotion. We want to see, is it true? And so when you start peeling away these beliefs, and I do this all the time with clients, we're peeling away these assumptions and beliefs, then the emotion changes. When I'm not reinforcing the emotion with all of these thoughts and stories, the layers start coming off that are holding it stuck in the body. When I'm no longer averse to it and pushing it down and fearing it because of a story I have. I have a story, but then I also have a behavior that arises because of that story regarding my relationship to my emotions. And that is what's pushing it down and storing it in the body. So then when I disidentify from the story of trauma, I'm again giving myself some space. This disidentification with story and with the emotions allows me to feel the emotions, but with detachment from the story. Not detachment from the emotion, the part where I'm feeling it, detachment from the ideas I have about the emotion that I'm just adding on top of the pure, direct experience I'm having in this moment. So it's very important to feel, but many people have been stuck in years feeling and feeling while believing a story, and we're never getting to the deep primary emotions. I'll link a video on primary emotions here. We're not feeling those that are actually going to release us. We can only get to the primary emotions when we're taking off the projections and the story, and also the secondary emotions and contractions that put us in the freeze response. So we start slowly peeling off the layers of this onion. And then we can feel the primary feeling that we felt when something happened without judging it, without taking it to mean something about ourselves. Just feeling it. It's just an experience we're having. And this detachment and outlook is what allows us to clear something and really move it out of our system so that the trauma no longer feels like it's defining us. It doesn't mean that you have to go down the non-dual path, but a non-dual perspective in general can be helpful in reducing identification with a trauma, thinking that it means something is wrong with me or my life, or that it can define me in any way. Disidentifying from our beliefs about it, disidentifying from our felt sense experience or emotions about it. Because if we don't disidentify from these things, we run the risk of projecting meaning onto the sensations that isn't true. We are looking at it through the filter of the trauma, and it can keep us stuck in the prison of the trauma. If we don't disidentify from these emotions, we can be more afraid of them, which also causes them to get stuck here as stored, saved patterns. We also want to be mindful about what thoughts we continue to believe in after we've cleared a trauma. If we are continuing to identify with certain beliefs or feelings, it's going to create a new felt sense of trauma, even if the new trauma doesn't occur. I've worked with people in the past when I was using only SE, where we cleared and cleared and cleared. SE is just this bottom box here. And it works. But then 6 months from now, they might come back and say, Nina, it's so weird. The symptoms came back, even though I didn't have a trauma again, because we hadn't worked with what beliefs are they buying into? What's their relationship with their emotions? Is it one of acceptance or one of denial? And even if a trauma doesn't occur, the same neural grooves just can cause the same felt sense of stored, stuck emotion in the body. So that's why I started adding the non-duality onto the SE in sessions, and I get much more long-lasting results. It's so much quicker, and the emotions are freed up because of this disidentification. So when you are feeling emotions, and you're trying to do so without identification, projection, meaning-making, assumptions, judgments, aversion, all of these things, it's most helpful to do so in a state when you're well rested, if possible, and when you're present. It's that presence, that awareness, that equanimity of attention without judgment onto your emotional experience that's going to heal it, and that's also going to allow it to move. So it's really tricky. It's the mental aversion or attachment to sensations, to emotions, that cause it to get locked in. Either one will lock it in, attachment and aversion. Either one is going to lock that in and trap you. So you want to be as equanimous or neutral and non-judgmental of your experience as you can. You're just having experiences. Of course, I acknowledge it can be very painful, very difficult. So this is not to dismiss the intensity. This is just giving a map of what is possible. But I encourage you to work with a professional as you're unwinding this, and make sure that you are safe as you are exploring this. You can do this in titrated ways, asking your body to just show you 10% of it at a time. Somehow this works. But I do encourage you to make sure that you have enough resources to do this safely. Okay, I hope this was helpful. Let me know how it goes. Feel free to share below. I'll see you next time.